All righty. Hey, everybody. So we are going to be delving into the law of the inner circle and the law of empowerment, chapters 11 and 12 for our John Maxwell study. So I am excited. I think it's going to crescendo to the end, and I expect to finish this up before Christmas. That's the goal. So congratulations to everybody that's sticking with it and reading and learning. Some people I know have to catch the recording on this, and that's totally fine. So, okay, so I am curious, how has your inner circle changed since Plexus? This is going to be interactive. So Kyle and Sarah, I hope you can unmute so we can hear your perspective also. Linda, what's your thoughts on that?
So when you say inner circle, are you saying people we are leading, or you're just saying anyone in the inner circle?
Just anyone, just in general. Or has it changed for you? Maybe it hasn't changed.
I feel like I have a brand new community with everyone in Plexus, so that's definitely changed. I don't necessarily feel like I'm leading new people because I only have one person on my team really sharing, and she's kind of not sharing, but the only one who has said yes to sharing. So,
yeah. Sarah, are you able to unmute and share your perspective? I don't know, she might be having an earbud in and feeding people supper. I'll just share really quick my perspective on that. My inner circle has changed, and it was really interesting. Oops, here's Gretchen. It was really interesting as we continued with Plexus, how things shifted around. And I've said for years, like, people do not have to do Plexus with me in order to still be friends. Like, I don't, whether they do business with me or not, like, I'm still friends with people. But it was interesting to see who became a lot closer to us because of Plexus, and also how the circle shifted because of Plexus. And some people that were closer to us, and I think some of this is just life seasons. I think it was maybe just a shift that happened at that time that we started Plexus. But my life all of a sudden got busier. So I wasn't initiating with as many friends as I was before Plexus. And I had a couple more babies. You know, homeschooling changes the dynamics of things. So it wasn't just me with my three littles seeking friends and wanting to do play dates all the time. It shifted to like, okay, now we're doing school. We're getting a couple more kids into the bunch. A few more are starting school. So, you know, I think there's sometimes just shifts in life. But it was interesting to see friendships fade and some, you know, ignite even more, because when you're doing life with people, like either school, business, or church, I think you just naturally are closer to those people. But it's also interesting, Linda, I agree with you in light of the inner circle, just in light of Plexus and the growth-minded people. Like to find a community there where you're connecting with people of like interests or growth-minded individuals that have the same values, goals, aspirations. And, you know, if you think through your circle, you know, who would be on a call like this with us? You know, there's probably only a percentage of them that would even be remotely interested in the topic of leadership. But I honestly think that any Christian should be interested in a leadership study because of how it impacts everything in life. It impacts our mothering, our marriages, our communities, our churches. If you think like our influence wherever that's at in a leadership role in our communities. Some people choose to be involved in politics, and so any sort of leadership that we could be learning about is only going to improve our skills in those areas. And this is really on my brain too, is like with my children. I want them to develop leadership skills and to be interested in the topic of leadership, because you never know where God is going to call them, or for them to be thinking, I don't know where God is going to call me, but I want to be a leader in my generation so that I can have impact and influence people for good. We need more leaders in our land. So, okay, Gretchen and Sarah, curious how or if you've noticed your inner circle change since Plexus. What's your thoughts?
I think my inner circle has gotten bigger. Just with the season of life that I'm in, going from having a bunch of little bit of children all close together and being a bit more of a homebody to doing something like this. And I think it's gotten bigger. Just there have been lots of new people that I have met and developed relationships with because of Plexus. Talk about seasons of life. I think I was moving from a quieter season that demanded a lot within the home to a season of being more active, more connective. Not that we're a hugely busy out and about family by any means, but yeah, it's grown.
Okay. And Gretchen, I know you said yours has grown, but I was teaching and actually joining Plexus, like mine has almost gotten smaller because I was so involved with so many people teaching, being out in the public eye and meeting people that way. And now I meet people virtually, which is so different from my life previous because it's not as much in person. Now it's like Zoom calls or we're just on Facebook chatting in groups. But I would say maybe the quality of my inner circle has gotten better. Like as a teacher, I didn't meet a lot of Christian people. And as a teacher, you were never really encouraged to grow as a leader. We never even touched these topics. Like that was up to the principal, to grow their leadership skills. We were just one of many, in the school. So I would say it's just gotten richer and meeting more moms, and just having faith-based relationships has been nice. And I've always been a foods and nutrition teacher, so it's nice to be around people who care about their bodies and their health. I've always taught high schoolers who could care less, so this has been so wonderful. It's been a nice change, honestly. I've really enjoyed where it's going.
I love that. Well, and you never know how those high schoolers will look back and remember Mrs. Kunstler teaching them the basics of health and nutrition, and they may end up appreciating you later in life and remembering some of those things they taught them. I think that sometimes we can be in a default circle, like because of where we live or who we're in connection with because of work, school, or church relationships. And I think when you're in a rural community, maybe it's even more emphasized. I know for years, my parents didn't really fit in with, circles locally, but I remember telling my mom, I'm like, if we lived in Chicago, you would probably find your tribe because there's just more people. And so it's interesting. My parents have been conference goers over the years, and how they've expanded their network through conferences and also just business circles and things like that. But it's interesting how like attracts like. And so as your circle grows and as you maybe invest in certain learning experiences to learn more, how you get connected with people that are also in the same boat. Like they want to learn more, they want to grow and things like that. And prior to Plexus, I was totally happy with my circle of friends. Like I didn't feel like I needed more friends. I know Angie has mentioned this as well, but like, what a blessing. Like I thought, even if Plexus gave us nothing else besides the connection with all of these amazing people within one team, it's worth it. And I think when we're together at convention, or we've hosted multiple team retreats, and it's just such a bless, or even just here at our house, sometimes everyone will gather, and it's just nice to be with just people that have common interests, that have similar values, that are serious about life and their health and leadership, and just want growth. It's a blessing. And it's I think sometimes, well, one, I didn't even know I needed it, and two, just a blessing. There's a scripture that talks about iron sharpening iron, and how we can be in connection with our inner circle and be encouraged, inspired, motivated. And so that's why I love doing the calls that we do, because when people decide to hop on and invest, they're really making a choice in their leadership growth because they're choosing to put themselves in the hot seat of growth. When you hop on a call or you stick an earbud in and even catch the recording. So I'm proud of you guys for doing that. And I was curious, so just in reference to the inner circle, isn't it interesting how when we study it, it's not like you can unhear it. So we can become more in tune or more aware of our inner circle and who is in it and how we want to grow it. And so I know last week, Gretchen took the law of connection and the law of magnetism. It might have been the law of magnetism. I was thinking, ooh, we should talk about our dream team qualities, our dream teamer qualities. Like, who are we looking for with people that we want to invite into our inner circle? So I'd like you guys to just take a couple of minutes and write down a few things, or if you've already written those things down, maybe you have it taped by your computer, take a couple minutes and just jot a couple character qualities, or just, I don't know, personal things that you would love to see in a dream teamer. So like thinking of people that you want in your inner circle, people that you want to build this business with, what are their qualities? I'll give us 2 minutes. I'll set my timer. Okay. And go. You guys get some qualities written down, or you guys pop them in the chat? Gretchen says, same thing. Never saw the friendships coming. Unexpected blessing. Yes, agreed. All right. Well, let's just popcorn style, since it's just a small group of us. Does someone want to go first with some things that you jotted down about what qualities that you would like your inner circle / dream team or people to have?
Sure, I'll go first. Self-motivated. I think it was when I was listening last week to Brittany Howard's study as I was preparing to lead. She, and I don't think I mentioned this, but she kicked off the call with kind of asking, what things are you looking for? And she said, what one quality is absolutely essential? My answer and a couple people's answer was integrity, but she actually said self-motivation. You can have high integrity, but if you're not self-motivated, you're never going to get anywhere. Now, do we want people with high integrity? Obviously, it's on my list. It's like also totally essential. But I just thought that was interesting and something that I hadn't thought about before. I'm like, oh, it's true. They got to be motivated to do the things, or else they're never going to go anywhere. So self-motivated, positive, high integrity, people who are fun, people who are caring, people who are faithful and faithful, people who are joyful, people who are lifters, not leaners, a people person, people who enjoy talking with, being with others, hardworking and emotionally mature, stable. Not that we don't stable, we don't have the emotions and the emotions and the ups and downs, but just having some emotional maturity, non-volatility, whatever.
Awesome. Who's next?
I can go. I also had integrity at the top of the list. I also had positive mindset. I also had self-motivated. I also had loves people. I had also team player, exhibits leadership qualities, person of influence, eager to learn, and then someone who health and fitness is important to them.
Love those. Sarah, did you get some different ones besides those?
So my first one I put was faith-based, because I think if you have a faith in God, then you are going to have a lot of these qualities. So I love that. I think you have to be likable. Mm-hmm. People aren't going to follow you if you're not a likable person and you want to share your life. Like that was something I have learned through this. It's just, you have to share your life. I used to not share anything. So be willing to share. I also think you just have to have this grit and you have this toughness, because a lot of people have told me who have dabbled with the business, who I've encouraged, and they just said, I can't do this. I can't handle all the no's or the no comments or anything like that. So you have to have a strong backbone, I think. You have to be really, really tough. I had others focused, because I hear that a lot in trainings. If all you're concerned about is where you're headed, you're not going to bring the team along with you. So you have to think of others. And then something that I saw a lot in the high school setting was the lack of commitment from students. Just they would drop on a dime a commitment they had made. So I'm looking for people who are committed, because I think that's a skill, a characteristic that's really lacking today. So that's what I had.
Love that. And maybe loyalty would go with committed. Maybe that would be
yes,
or another synonym.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had very much the same as you guys. I just feel like this list describes people that are on one team. And I'm just so grateful for everybody, and just the character that I see in you guys, how you guys are solution oriented. I put that one down, creative, because in this business we have to be creative marketers. We have to be creative in our, maybe another word to go along with that would be intuitive, to know what to say, when to say it, who to talk to, how to influence people's thinking, right, through our Facebook posts or through our messaging. And I heard Emily Gibson say recently that Facebook posts are the sparks, the messages are the fire. So I thought that was cute. Encouragers, what else did I put? Leadership, development, influential. Yeah, so yes. So if you don't have something like that printed or posted where you can see it every day, so you can be praying through, thinking through, just gathering people of that quality to your team, you want to have it on the forefront of your brain. And also praise people on your team that possess those qualities. Just like, well, we're going to talk in a minute about the law of empowerment and how recognition is a way to empower people and to encourage them. So in light of the inner circle, though, I was thinking of that quote that says, show me your friends and I will show you your future. And then also there's a proverb that I forgot to look up the reference to. Someone can pop it in the chat if they want. It's the proverb that says, he who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. And that Solomon, back in the day, even recognized the law of the inner circle and how that impacts young people and old people. Like it totally impacts us. So, okay, good. All right, let me just whiz back through this real fast.
Megan, I wanted to ask this, is it normal to have never really thought about your inner circle, but it just kind of became, thinking about my inner circle, I didn't like create it. I didn't seek these people out. It just kind of, happened. So is that how everybody else feels? Or have you like been intentionally looking for people? I just haven't.
Well, I think that in some ways our inner circle can be by default, because maybe it's the people that you connect with just because of the circles that you're in. So maybe like kind of by happenstance, you had a circle. I don't know if you would have considered them inner circle through your work or your whatever, kid connections, school, church is another thing. I feel like we are connected with people, but those are maybe demographics where there's a common goal or a common interest. And so I think that there is an aspect of just by default, there's a circle. But in light of your inner circle, I think that's who you choose to be around. Because like not everybody you're going to go pursue a friendship with necessarily. Like if you do a play date with friends, you're probably going to pick a mom that you connect with, you like how she parents, you want to learn from her, or you value like how they're training their kids and you want her kids to be around your kids. Or I'm just thinking through, like, I think that there is an intentionality, even if we're not aware of it, even just by chemistry. Like you're probably not going to go on a double date with another couple that you have zero in common with and you don't really like them. You know what I mean? So I think that the topic is interesting, and maybe the more that we're aware of it, the more we can be like, interesting. I don't think that their values align with where we're wanting to go. Justin and I have had these conversations before too. Like, I don't know, there's just shifts in seasons as children get older, and you're like, noticing some things about people, and you're like, well, we don't have to be around them. Like it's one thing to be around people because you're by default in connection with them because of some sort of, I don't know, church or work, school function, but it's different than if you actually seek them out to hang out with. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, it does make sense, Megan. And I just think a study like this isn't a topic that Kyle and I would ever talk about of an evening. I feel like this is just a challenge, not only for me, but as a couple, and like it extends into who you want in your inner circle. But I just think these are things that people don't talk about. Mm-hmm. And you should. I mean, it's creating a plan for your life, but if I hadn't picked up this book, this isn't something I would be really thinking about a whole lot. So I think good for me.
Well, sometimes we realize, maybe we weren't aware before, but sometimes we realize how toxic some relationships are. And sometimes it's even within your own family. And I'm not saying you disown people or that there isn't a time for, you know, you to mentor other people or to purposely be in community or connection with somebody because you do want to encourage them or you feel like they need ministered to. I'm not saying that that's not important, but I think just the awareness of like, when I'm around those people, this is what I come away with, you know, and just being aware of that. If you go on page 116 in the workbook, I really like this little section where it talks about, well, he talked about it in the law of addition, how people add, subtract, multiply, or divide when it comes to others. And definitely be evaluating the people in your inner circle because you want them to be adders or multipliers. Inner circle members should also add value to you personally. So, and then he talks about team chemistry. So seek for your inner circle people who will help you improve. And I think it goes along with, like, if you're going to be exercising with someone that is not as fit as you, you're not going to get more fit. You're probably going to slow your walk down or slow your run down for that other person. They're going to get better. And I'm not saying we shouldn't seek to mentor somebody that's a step behind us or whatever, but we should do that. Plus make sure that we're running with a power partner. You know, if we're going to be running on the daily, you want to be running with someone that's actually better than you, that's going to push you, which is why a lot of times people hire a fitness coach because they know that they're going to get put, they're going to push them and they're going to push us more than we would push ourselves. Or, you know, if we're working out with our kids or somebody that's wanting to get fit and we're kind of in that coach position, it's not going to necessarily make us better. Yeah, mentoring ministry relationship is different than inner circle people. For sure. And so it's interesting to kind of evaluate those little the relationships in our lives, and I mean, kind of categorize them, because you can be like, okay, well, if this person is wanting this much of my time, should I, well, one, should I be giving it to them? And two, sometimes it's like, okay, well, I do have time for ministry. And so, yes, I'm going to give them some time, but I also need to have time within my inner circle to make sure that I'm growing as a person and that I'm not just spending all this time with like only needy people. I don't know if that makes sense, but just thought there. Okay. And then I liked this. No matter how it happens, if they improve the ability of other team members, they also improve your leaders. Identify, cultivate, and recruit. It says the question is, do they display excellence, maturity, and good character in everything that they do? And I think we covered that in our list of dream teamers, for sure. Okay. All righty. Oh, I think he had a good point saying great inner circles do not come together by accident. Effective leaders are continually developing current and future inner circle members. And how do they do it? This is on page 119. It says they spend extra time with them strategically to mentor them and develop relationships. They give them extra responsibility and place higher expectations on them. And then they give them more credit when things go well and hold them accountable when they don't. So, okay, and then it talks about evaluating inner circle and list the names of your current inner circle members. So, and I think that speaks to the whole recruiting and developing leaders. Like I see that within our team, even to like level ones, where there's like the OGs, original, I would say inner circle, at least in terms of Plexus, our jewels. And then how there's, every year there's more and more people that join for the business. And so I just view that as another, raising up more leaders and widening the inner circle, which is cool. So, okay, I'm super excited for this chapter on the law of empowerment. Do you guys have anything else that you want to add about the inner circle thing? Okay, so we'll just blitz over to the law of empowerment. It says on page 123, it says, by becoming a secure leader who can give power away, you will make your organization more powerful. So I think this could be called the insecurity chapter. Has anyone ever felt insecure as a Plexus leader? Raise your hand. And does it ever completely go away? Not sure about that. I think that there's a level of, as we grow, there's going to be some insecurities along the way, but it's not that we're not going to be ruled by that, right? And so I think just the awareness that insecurity should not stand in the way of maximizing our potential. And so just, to be aware of that. Okay, and then there was the example of Henry Ford, who was the antithesis of an empowering leader, which was super interesting. And his business actually massively went backwards because he wasn't willing to innovate, wasn't willing to let other leaders, to empower other leaders and raise up more leaders to make his business better. And it was like a couple generations down that finally, one of his grandson took the ball and got those people out of the way that had those really limiting beliefs in light of empowering and raising up more leaders. So good things to learn from. And also, it's been interesting as we've studied government too, and we were talking about today's chapter was about the presidents, and it actually talked about President Lincoln's cabinet. And he referenced Lincoln, actually, I don't know if it was I think it might have been in the other book. I feel like that one might be slightly different. I don't have it in here, but just the book had a little blurb about Lincoln's cabinet, which I thought was so interesting. He had a diverse cabinet so that he would be a more well-rounded decision maker because of those people he surrounded himself with. And so I think a president is a perfect example of, they have to choose their inner circle, and they need to choose it well because those people are going to influence their decisions. So I thought this was super interesting okay, so how could we empower people, or in your teams, individual teams, or what you see other leaders doing, what are some examples of empowering people on our team? Do you guys have any ideas?
I felt like this is such a nebulous word for me, or nebulous concept, until more recently. I don't know, somebody kind of stated it in a way that I thought made it, oh, that's what that means, a little more practical. But showing people, telling people, demonstrating to people that they can do things is empowering. Whether that's walking someone through a process and saying, yay, you did it, look at that, you could do this. Whether that's, sharing something and saying, I'm just a normal, regular person, I'm not extra special, I'm not talented, you can do this too. And, praising and recognizing people for doing things that just emphasizes to them, even sharing things that you see in people, strengths that they have, abilities that they have, skills that they have. Those are, just some concrete ways of empowering people.
Mm-hmm. Has it been not ambiguous, but unclear to any of you, others on the call listening, like what it actually means to empower somebody?
No, I wasn't really confused by it. I just really like the example of Henry Ford, how he did the opposite when he saw strengths in people. He like put them down. Like he was intimidated by that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I don't have that quality. Like I don't see myself doing that, but I don't know, it's eye-opening to see how some people would react to strengths in other people. Feeling like you're going to lose your place. Didn't you talk about that in this chapter? Like he's like, people are worried about losing their position. So they don't empower people like they ought to. So I think we need to take the focus maybe off of ourselves, because everybody just likes to be encouraged. Everybody likes to be appreciated. Pointing out the positives, it's always good. So that's what I took from that. I wasn't confused by it, but that was a good example.
And sometimes there's words that we hear, but we don't always know how to talk about it in Plexus language. Like, well, what would that look like with my team right now to empower them? And so, if you have a largely wholesale team, maybe a way to empower them would be to even recognize them or congratulate them for consistently ordering for the last 90 days, and even shouting them out on their Facebook wall or something, or in your stories or something, where, maybe they're not sharing yet, but if they know that you just really appreciate them, it might empower them to go, who knows, it might give them courage to be like, oh, that was so sweet of Sarah. And, it might spark something in them, or whoever, Linda or Gretchen. I wrote down, helps to empower, means to give power to somebody. So help them reach their potential, believe in them. So yeah, I think even verbalizing what we see in people, maybe they're not sharing yet, but you could even say something, you could even think through who the people are on your team. Some may be sharing, some may not be sharing yet, but don't forget the yet part, because there's multiple people, level ones of mine, that didn't share for like a year or two into their business. And it's so interesting, or whatever, into their product experience. It's just so interesting how life seasons can shift for them. But I think also can, like, dripping little beliefs in them, saying, you might even like think through who is on your team currently. And if you see potential in some of them, message them, maybe just a little voice message, and say, think through what you want to say first. And like, you can even pump yourself up by saying, oh my word, like if you truly believe that Jenny could go be Emerald and be with you on the trip in Maricopa next year, like message her and tell her, and just say, hey, it could be something even where you're afraid to say it, but how your words could really empower someone. And you could even pray through it and just ask Lord to put on your heart, like, is there someone on my team right now that I need to encourage? And it could take a lot of different angles depending on, what you hear back from that. But it might even be just sitting in your quiet space and thinking through your team and being like, you know what? Chelsea would be so good at this. I wonder if she would ever do this with me, and maybe Chelsea started, or whoever, Jenny started just for products, and she made that super duper clear to you. And so maybe in the beginning you were like, well, I don't want to talk to her about the business because she told me she just wanted the products. But if you see potential in her, then I think we need to be willing to tell people, and to be genuine about it. Obviously, I don't tell everybody that. But for some people, or if you know that they have a need, that's another thing, is like, maybe that their husband lost their job, or they've made a decision as a family to be a one-income family so mom can stay home with kids, or whatever. So, it can look at, different ways, but seeing potential in people, believing in them. I think it's interesting that if you struggle to see potential in people, that you will struggle to give them responsibility and empower other people. And also, I think empowering others would be, being excited for them to shine. And so if you know, Sarah said that she's not wired this way, but apparently some people are. Like Henry Ford is like, just wants to shove people down because they have such a scarcity mindset in light of success and recognition or whatever. So I would be interested if someone that was like that read this chapter and then shifted, like what light bulbs would go off for them. Like, would they see it in themselves that they're like that? I don't know. It's interesting to think through. Linda, did you have anything on that you wanted to share?
Just basically what Gretchen said was kind of what I was thinking, and giving them responsibility, being willing to give them responsibility. And I think he had said, if you yourself are insecure, then you probably won't work to empower others. So kind of doing a gut check on where you're at if you're not willing to do that, is insecure behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the scarcity of not enough success to go around, and having a strong sense of self-worth, which comes from God, really. If people, like, just like we talked about at the beginning of the call, Sarah said one of her dream team qualities would be that they're faith-filled, that they know the Lord, because when people know who they are and their identity is, they understand their identity, so many other things make sense versus trying to build something on, you know, not having any self-worth or confidence or things like that. So I'm actually going to play you guys this little blurb by Brittany because I thought it was so good. And I think she says it really amazingly. So let me just turn it up real fast.
Insecurity is not an indicator of if you can be successful or not. That's the whole point. Only secure leaders can give power to others.
You guys
Guys,
hear that?
this chapter could be called the insecurity chapter. Jules, can you please raise your hand if you have ever felt insecure in your business or in your relationships?
Let me buzz it forward just for a second.
Gifts and opportunities, and then you help them make the most of their gifts and opportunities. That's empowering somebody. So one thing that makes a leader strong in empowering other people to reach their potential is belief in people. If you cannot see potential in other people, then you're going to struggle to do what Terry just said that Christina has done for her. You're going to struggle to give them responsibilities if you can't see their potential. So empowering leaders believe that their job is to make other people shine. It's not all about them. It's about making other people shine. And how do we do that? Well, I mean, you got to be willing to delegate.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just be the one who shines all of the time by yourself, right? Have you guys heard of the 80% rule? If somebody can do something 80% as well as you can, you should delegate it. People who struggle with delegating things, they will always be self-employed, but not business owners. Do you guys know the difference between the two? Self-employed people, if they don't work, they don't get paid. They have time flexibility. They don't have to answer to anybody, but if they don't work, they don't get paid. A business owner owns a system that runs with or without him, okay? So the goal here is we want to be business owners. And if you don't know how to empower others, you will always be self-employed. Not the goal, okay? Because if you're just thinking, if you have this mentality of, if I want it done right, I got to do it myself, or I want to be in the spotlight all the time, I'm not going to give that task away because then they get the credit or they get the recognition. That's the opposite of empower, okay? So look for people's greatest strengths and envision how they could leverage their strengths to achieve big things in Plexus. As a leader, one of your responsibilities is to find other good leaders. And once you find good leaders, you need to build them up. You need to give them resources. You need to give them authority. You need to give them responsibility. Sometimes it might even require troubleshooting why they're not reaching their goals. they might be feeling like they're doing all the work, but they don't understand what they're doing wrong or why they're not being successful. Sometimes empowering them means taking the time to help them figure that out.
Okay. Anyways, I wanted to just have that little blurb, her say that blurb about the self-employed versus business owner. I thought that was so powerful, and how self-employed people have time flexibility, but they don't have like the freedom to walk away from their business because it just runs, versus a business owner, it can run without them. Like the bus test. Have you guys heard about the bus test? So if you get hit by a bus and die, will your business continue, or will it die with the bus? So interesting. I also thought it was great that she said it's our responsibility to find other good leaders and then empower them and develop them and things like that. And the opposite of empowered would be micromanaging. We don't delegate, and then we're concerned with who gets the credit. I thought that was really good. Okay, so how do we guard against insecurity? We're talking about insecurity. Any thoughts on that?
I think one way is to be others focused and not so self-focused.
Where does the self-focus stem from, do you think?
Insecurities.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking fear.
Yeah, that also, both.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Worrying so much about what other people think. And that fear and insecurity can actually keep us from sharing what could potentially be life-changing for other people. And instead of being so worried about that, I know Brittany says to be worried about whether others are maximizing their potential. Become so consumed with other people that we're not focused on our own fears or insecurities. Any other thoughts on how to guard against insecurity?
Mm-hmm. I know we already mentioned identity, but I do think it is such a huge thing when you know who you are, when you know whose you are, when you know that your worth and your acceptance is not tied up in your performance or in your image. It sets you free to do what you should, to be to lead the way that you should. So I don't know, as far as guarding, just being very grounded and being putting ourselves in a place where we're reminded of our identity, especially if we're not real shored up or if we're having a struggle or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Another way to guard against insecurity might be the inner circle, like to let those people hold the mirror for us. And I think that tapping into the community piece can be definitely helpful. Another thing would be to be rooted in God's word and check whether the thoughts that we're thinking that are insecure, the insecurity thoughts, whether they're actually true or if they line up with God's truth and if they're based in reality. And if it's not, then like we can make a choice about the thoughts that we're thinking, and we might have to replace those negative lies with the truth. So and so yeah, and then there's just a little side note. If any of us struggle with confidence, the best way to grow in that one would be to evaluate and kind of explore the identity piece, knowing who you are and whose you are, and then also to add more value to yourself. And it goes back to that quote, we can't impart what we don't possess. And so being in studies like this can really help to add value to ourselves. So we'll have like more tools in the toolbox to pull from, and more, I don't know, there's been several times where some people have come to me, I think just asking for encouragement. And it's interesting, if you haven't like personally been in the Word, like it's one thing to open the church or open the Bible at church, but if you haven't been personally in the Word, how years or decades of not having that can really end up being a void in your life later on when you're going through a struggle. And so anyways, it's been interesting to me, like women that are in their 30s or 40s, how little they have to draw on because of lack of being in the Word or being a student of the scriptures. To I would say also the lack of godly counselors, mentors, or even seeking those out, even if they're through like book mentors. I'm thinking of a friend right now that just kind of always, I don't know, she has lacked even just mentors in her family, which I think is sad. But also, if you don't have that, you can seek it out through mentors, like through people, connections that you have, or book mentors. That's been a huge resource to me over the years, and that adds up, to a wealth of things, ideas, and concepts, principles, and obviously scripture to pull and draw from, when we're needy or when someone else is needy and needs encouraged or whatever. So anyways, not to to just be aware of adding value to ourselves daily. And it can be the simplicity of opening up the Word every day. It can be the simplicity of popping an earbud in with a good, really encouraging podcast from a Bible believing person, right? It can be worship music that lifts our spirit and soul to higher things, right? So anyways, that can grow confidence, and you build that up over time by making investments and deposits in that bank, so to speak. Okay, so barriers to empowerment really quick. So we talked about job security, I think already, people being just scarcity mindset about success. Resistance to change. Change is the price of progress. I think my brain sometimes doesn't catch up with change. Like I don't know. I can pivot pretty fast in some ways, but in other ways, sometimes if I've already had in my mind, like it's going to happen one way, it's hard for me to wrap my brain around, oh, it's actually going to be different. So that was a good little nugget for me, is change is the price of progress. And we have to be willing to change. And it says here, effective leaders are only able to improve their organizations if they're willing to change. And also, I think the technology piece is something else to be aware of. Like just like what we did in 2015 to go Emerald or whatever, maybe slightly different now with the different technologies and things like that we have. So, and then we've talked about self-worth. So.
Well, I was just going to mention too, like, I know we all follow Brooke Hemingway, and she's just so honest. Like, she just learned how to use Canva and Google Docs and whatever else. She was like going on a list. And I just think if somebody who is that high up in the company and is just learning these things, then we can too. So that's always encouraging to see people you have to continually grow. And I guess change. That's because she's doing a lot of different things now. But that's encouraging to me because she has a lot on her plate and she still makes time, because change takes learning and setting aside time to learn it before you can use it. So I thought that was good.
Well, and it's empowering to us to see other people doing the hard thing and making changes, or setting aside time to learn how to do the Google Docs or how to download Canva and figure out, how to make a graphic or whatever. Like, it's honestly not rocket science, but it just takes time. But I think we have to remember, leaders aren't avoiders. So if we're going to lead, if we're going to be better leaders, then we can't be avoiding certain things that are going to help us grow our business. And also, I like, you know, thinking thoughts that are helpful to making good changes, or just mindsets around whatever things that are tricky or new or hard. And my dad always said, everything's easy once you learn it. I think that's how he said it. Everything's easy once you understand it. Maybe something like that. And I used that for Daniel today, actually, when he was, or Gabe, when he was trying to learn this piano song, because Daniel rushed over and was like doing the hard version of the same song. He's like, oh, it's so easy. Bop, bop, bop. I was playing it. And Gabe's over here trying just to learn the right hand. And I said, well, this is an example of Daniel has practiced and that it's easy to him now, because everything's easy once you understand it. And once your brain and your fingers have practiced and you've mapped that into your mind, it's easy, right? But sometimes it's those little thoughts that can fuel us when something feels hard, or like, I'm just going to avoid that technology because it's going to take me more time. It's going to slow me down. But sometimes we have to slow down so that we can speed up, right? What other thoughts do you guys have on this chapter? Anything else? Oh, I think empowering people could totally be translated into our mothering also, or grandmothering, like letting our kids make a meal or unload the dishwasher or make the muffins. And even though it's going to be messier or take twice as long, but how that's empowering them, because I actually do want to work myself out of a job in my home. Like, I want systems running without me, always having my hand in it. And so that was also a check for me, even as a mom in that leadership role, to be like, am I micromanaging or am I making sure it's done with excellence? There's that struggle of the juggle, right? But I put areas of empowerment. The last time I read through this, I think I had ministry, motherhood, plexus. And then I had like a little sidebar, raise up leaders. So, good stuff. So, homework. Who and how can you empower somebody this week? So in one of our chat threads, you guys can pop in there of how you're going to, or how you did empower somebody on your team, or what you took away from this chapter to take action. Okay, and the next week we're going to do the law of the picture, chapter 13, and the law of buy-in, chapter 14. Okay, so 13 and 14 for next week. That's going to be awesome. I would encourage you guys to go listen to Brittany Howard's chapter while you're reading it, or pop an earbud in. I was listening to her and taking notes actually right before the call. So if you listen to the last week's, you'll probably be like, whoa, there was a lot in that chapter that we just like rehashed, but good stuff. And she pulls a lot out, and she actually has her jewels piping in on those calls. So they just flesh out a lot of good things and really expand on the questions that she asks. So I appreciate all of you guys chiming in on these questions too, because I think that's where the value is added, just like through the discussion part of it. So thank you guys for chiming in. And oh yeah, Linda said that she's been listening. So yeah, I think it just helps cement it in our brain. Justin was reading to the kids this morning, a Zig Ziglar book, See You at the Top. It's really good. But Zig was saying how little, like, oh man, is it 2% or 20%? I can't remember. Like, if you just read through something one time versus if you study it for 6 consecutive days, you have like a 80% retention of information. And the statistic was really cool. So it's just a reminder to me, like, why, well, one, to be consistent in our learning, and even just in Plexus growth mode. I feel like when I am listening, and just pop an earbud in, even if it's just a little bit throughout the day, listening to something, training or a coaching, it just helps me stay in the mode and stay relevant and be inspired, because everything stems from the thoughts we're thinking, right? And so I just feel like it helps me get better. So looking forward to next week's chapters. And you guys, thanks for hopping on and for contributing. Happy Monday. We'll see you all next week.